today. We are in Canada. Welcome to Meet the Experts. I am your host, Casey Pacheco, and we are interviewing nurses from all around the world, just beautiful people who not just want to transform healthcare, but they have taken the steps to transform healthcare in their own special way, and we have named them experts. So today, come with me. We're going to go to Canada, and this is her very first podcast. We will welcome in Darlene Hudson with QRS Educational Services. Now, welcome, Darlene. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Casey. I love it. Thank you so much.
We are so happy to have you on. We can't wait to hear about you. How long have you been a nurse, Darlene?
I have proudly been a nurse since 1983. So 40, whatever the math is, 43 years this year.
That's amazing. That is longer than I have been alive.
What? So, I know. There's another nurse in our global group, Patricia Temple, and she calls herself the elder wise nurse. And I really resonate with that. Up until recently, I'd be saying, well, I've got 30 years plus of education. Now I'm proudly saying I've been a nurse for 43 years because we do have stories. We see nursing at its best, at its worst, and it comes back, and it's been a real roller coaster.
Absolutely. Now, where in Canada are you located for our viewers?
Well, I am located, most of you will know where Toronto is, but I'm about 3 hours northeast of Toronto in the Kawartha Lakes, which is an amazing area. It's very much a global tourism spot because we have a lot of waterways. We have the Trent Severn Waterway, which connects Lake Ontario to Lake Huron through a series of, I believe it's about 200 and I can't remember how many locks, but you go through systems of locks. So people will rent boats and they'll go through the locks. It's amazing. It's beautiful. So that's right.
That's wonderful. We will have to take a trip to really visit you one day.
I would love to show you my place.
Oh man, we will make that happen. Now, nurses, are you ready? And we have a lot of people viewing from around the world, and we ask you rapid fire questions. So are you ready for the questions?
I believe I am.
Okay. So my first question to you is, if you could share one piece of advice with your younger self, what would it be and why?
That's a great question. And I actually start one of my talks to nursing students about that. I was asked to present for one of the universities last March. And I thought, how am I, as a 65-year-old nurse, going to speak to a group of nursing students? And that was the question I asked. And my answer is, I would tell myself as a 21-year-old nursing student that your confidence will come with time. You have to believe in yourself. You're going to make mistakes, but that's life. Mm-hmm. And you have to own them and learn from them. And with time and experience, and one day after another day, your confidence surprisingly grows without you even being aware of it.
That is beautiful. Such beautiful advice. And it's like you're pouring into the next generation. That's beautiful.
Well, it's about the next generation, right? Because we are in a big crisis, and we have to pull out all the stops locally, globally, to make sure that our profession continues to exist and to thrive.
Yes. So that leads me to the second question. If you could transform healthcare, what is one major aspect of healthcare that you would transform? And how do you envision this change to impact the system and the people it serves?
Oh, my goodness. Well, we all play an integral role in healthcare, nurses, doctors, and all the allied professionals. And it's a shame that budget doesn't seem to go where it's due. And whether it's Canada, United States, globally, I'm hearing about a lack of finances. And organizations don't really, I know budget constraints are tough, but when you don't respect the work that the nurses are doing, when you don't have systems in place that deals with the trauma that nurses face, and we lose nurses in droves, I would envision that give nurses their due finances, but it's not just about that. It's quality of life. Listen to nurses and what we have to say.
Mhm. Beautiful. So you would change the quality of life for nurses around the world.
Really, absolutely.
Wow, that's powerful. You know, and no matter where you go in the world, a nurse is a very pivotal person in the community, much like a fireman or school teacher. Yeah,
Mhm.
very pivotal.
It's very true. And the one thing that's unique about nurses is we are there with your first breath.
Yeah.
We are there through every crisis that brings you into the hospital. We take care of you. We listen to you. We hope that you get better and send you home. We'll see you again. And then we're there at the end when you die, quite often. And every time we are impacted by a patient and their stories, it makes us richer, but it allows us to transform our care to the next patient that we deal with, right?
It's very true. Very true. Rich souls, I like to say. We are rich
Yes.
souls. So my next question to you is, in your experience, what is one skill or mindset that most often prevents, whether it be nursing or entrepreneurs, because you're an entrepreneur as well, from reaching true success goals?
Wow, that is such a deep, deep story and question, because I have lived a very rich nursing life that I did not ever expect myself to entertain when I was a new grad. I just wanted to work in CCU. That was my happy spot. But I did research, and I've been an entrepreneur for 32 years. I've had my own business since 1993. And I think the one advice, if that was the question, I already forgot the question, so I apologize, but I'll improvise a question. I think it's to know that it's okay to be afraid,
Mhm.
but don't let that stop you. If you don't take risks, you will never know. And I've made a lot of mistakes. It's like, oh, that was a really dumb move or a bad call, and that cost me a bit of money. But if you don't take a chance, you won't be able to grow. So you have to be open to change and open to learning. And nursing is lifelong learning.
Yes, yes. Now, you say you've been an entrepreneur since 1993. Do you mind telling us what are some of the sacrifices that you had to make to offer the services? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the services you offer and then some of the sacrifices you had to make to offer it.
Wow. Okay. So my business came when I was a critical care nurse educator, and I also was a CCU manager. So it was over a period of a couple of years. And I was also doing research. So that was one sacrifice as a young nurse with a desire to grow, but I didn't know into what. One of the sacrifices was wearing many hats and trying to have children and driving an hour each way. So my time at the hospital, they were long days. And then I'd come home and I'd have to focus on business. But the business came out of a need that we identified when we did our very first fibrinolytic study in the late 1980s. So we were looking at patients that were coming in with MIs, heart attacks, and we were looking at giving them the clot-busting drug. Now, prior to that, we watched patients die. They'd blow out their left ventricles at around day 8. They'd had massive infarcts. We couldn't stop the process. So along came these brilliant researchers that said, what about this drug? So I participated as a research nurse part-time while still a CCU bedside nurse. And the results of that showed that this drug was valuable. It saved lives, saved myocardium. So the next logical step was to track national data guides. How are we doing for the door to needle time? So we know when a person comes in, first medical contact with a heart attack, they need to have their fibrinolytic drug given within 30 minutes. That's the national guidelines. So the National Data Registry was comparing our hospital to other like-sized hospitals. And our 30-minute door-to-needle time was never reached. It was on average about 120 minutes. And so we would be able to capture each of there were 4 timepieces that we were looking at, but the one timepiece that our CQI project focused on was the fact that when the patient had their ECG done by the nurse, that ECG sat for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, until the doc got to it. Why? Because nurses weren't allowed nor trained on how to read ECGs. So as an educator then, because this is over a couple of years, I designed with my partner at the time, she's now retired, but we designed a training module for our emergency nurses on ECG assessment. They loved it. And that's when the spark kind of, oh, should we take this bigger? Because if our emergency nurses have this question, what about other emergency nurses? So we chose 3 cities that were not in the Toronto area because we wanted to offer the opportunity of learning to people that weren't easily able to access training. Okay. We chose 3 cities. We picked the conference venue. We set the template, our form of advertising, because this is before social media. We got on our typewriter and we did the Word document. This is the agenda. And we literally cut and scotch taped our flyer. Then we mailed out in snail mail about 1,000 forms. And then we sat and wait. We thought, who's going to pay money to listen to 2 strangers talk about this? Mm-hmm. Each of the 3 venues were sold out. Oh. Yeah. So we knew that we had a product, and it just from that point on, it just snowballed. But the sacrifices were the blood, sweat, tears, equity. Mm-hmm. It was about 5 years before we started seeing income. I mean, we had maybe $3,000 for a year that we would divide between the 2 of us. And it's like, yay, we made money, woohoo. I never, ever imagined in my life that it would be full-time. But then as the word spread, so the material was good, people trusted us, they respected what we were delivering. And so now we were getting more requests. Okay. So a big sacrifice was probably just the time on the road. I became a traveling educator. So I would go to different hospitals, and it's always for me about going to the customer, because if they can train as a team, if they can avoid sending their nurses to out-of-town conferences, paying for their hotels, if I can go to them, it's a lot more cost effective. So that's the premise. But the cost was, I remember one Easter Monday in a restaurant in a hotel by myself, and my husband and kids were at home having Easter dinner, and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? And then the next day it's a work day for everybody and everything's fine. And just seeing the impact that I'd make and seeing the evaluation, all of those sacrifices were worth it.
Yes, that is so beautiful, because it leads right into my next question for you. How does this work that you're doing, because you're still doing the work, how does this align with the powerful impact and legacy that you wish to leave behind as a nurse?
That's a great question. So having done this for 32 years, I see people, I'll see a nurse once and then I may never see them again. But I have my stalkers. I call them my stalkers. And I have seen them every couple of years for 10, 15 years. I know them by name and they come for a refresh. And I see the evaluations at the end of the day, and they're always very positive, which makes me feel like I'm doing what I need to be doing. But I don't know the long-term impact. I don't know, like if tomorrow I wasn't here, would people really miss me? Not that it's, I'm not fatalistic, but that's just the way it is. Yeah. So the legacy really now for me is not only including that, but also shifting to try to preserve our nursing culture. to improve our nursing retention. And having met so many nursing students, they are really the most vulnerable of the nursing population. And, I've had them cry when they've been to one of my sessions. So I also run ACLS, so Advanced Cardiac Life Support, and that's a testing kind of situation. And usually everybody's pretty uptight coming into the testing. Nobody likes to be tested. So my job as the instructor is really to get the claws out of the ceiling to make sure that they understand that this is a supportive learning opportunity for them. I'm not there to fail them. I'm there to help them grow. And nursing students who have taken the program, that's the group that I found at one of the sessions. 3 of them came to me at the end and they're bawling their eyes out. And they said, there's so much pressure on us. There's so many expectations on us. They want us to work in emergency, in critical care. I've only seen a few, and that's with my preceptor or my instructor there beside me. And I'm afraid I'm going to do harm. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to handle it. And that, I think, started my interest in this specific population. So my legacy would be and we're about ready to launch it on Monday. It's our open mic session, and it is for nursing students. We are offering 1-hour sessions for 4 weeks. And today we got our cohort size, and we are addressing what they feel are important issues to them. And we've heard them tell us that incivility, racism, bullying. So that's a topic just on alone. That's Monday night is on that topic. The next Monday, it's self-care, hearing from them what they do at the end of a shift. That's really hard. What makes them feel good? How do they relax? How do they de-stress at the end of their time at work? The third session, we're going to look at whatever they want to talk about. And they've already raised that they want us to address critical thinking skills. And something I think we lack in nursing school is making that connection between this is what you know, but why do you need to know it? How do you apply that? So they're looking at myself and my co-facilitator to shed some light on that. And then the final session on December 8th, we're having a supportive Q&A panel of nurses where the participants get to ask us any question under the sun. And so my legacy is really to start this movement of having a shared space of support and non-judgment. And it's starting with nursing students, but we all know it's going to be new grads, nurses. This is sort of what I want my legacy to be, is the start of this movement.
That is a beautiful, beautiful legacy. And I know that you have interest in the global nursing population. How do you see this? How do you see this? And also your work at QRS and your work with the students, how do you see this expanding to our global audience, our global nurses who say, I would love to be part of that?
Well, I just did a rebrand on my website to make it more user-friendly. My daughters were saying, Mom, your website is so dated. But part of why I did that is I've always had a dream, Casey, of having a global reach, because I know nurses everywhere in school aren't taught the skills properly of cardiac rhythm interpretation, 12-lead ECG assessment, cardiac medications, and case studies to sort of implement various medication profiles, and just walking through the life of a patient from emerge to discharge and outpatient. And so this is a global need. Yeah. If I could reach out globally to make nurses everywhere know that this is available to them, I would also feel like I've met my life's goal. Then the open mic, the virtual open mic, where nurses everywhere can feel that they're not struggling alone. They are not isolated in their traumas, in their experiences. And just to be able to be heard, that would be a second branch of my sort of what I get to pass on globally. So I'm hoping.
That is wonderful. Well, that is beautiful. There's a lot of room for it. And I know a lot of people are interested in what you are offering. I have a question here for you. What is one impressive or meaningful thing that you have done in your life? Could be nursing or any other thing that most people don't know about you.
Well, I was outside today with my chainsaw. I am a forest steward. On our 100 acres, we have 100 acres of old forest, and we have a mill. And so on a regular basis, after a storm or seasonally, we will walk our trails. We have probably about 5 miles of trails that we've created, and we take care of our forest. We planted 2,000 brand new trees for a Greener Earth initiative in 2013, and I babysat each tree because strangling vines wanted to suffocate its life. And now all of these trees are 20 feet high. And yeah, and so, we had a big ice storm in March, and a lot of our hardwoods and softwoods were devastated. So we are cutting those down. We harvest sustainably. And so a lot of the wood is for heating our home, but we also have a mill and we have outbuildings, and we will mill our wood and make furniture. And I mean, my wall here is from wood that come from our property.
That's gorgeous. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. The nurses are so dynamic. They have so many parts and parcels to them. That is so amazing. Thank you for sharing. Now, what do you think every nurse should know about entrepreneurship? You've been an entrepreneur for a long time.
Yes. There are so many facets to be aware of. And I find right now I see a lot of presence of nurses wanting to enter into an entrepreneurial field, which is, commendable. I do suggest that you have to have the experience first.
Mhm.
So as a student nurse, you need bedside nursing if you want to be an educator such as myself. And whether it's pediatrics, mental health, whatever, you have to have that experience. You have to be a risk taker. That's probably one of the most important things. And you have to stay up on evidence-based practice. Because for me to say something to a group of people and it's not the truth or it's not current, and I've been caught a few times, and you will instantly lose respect of the audience. So it's really important that it's not easy work. You're 24/7. You have to really force yourself to shut it down sometimes. But I have a full-time administrator. I have 8 instructors that will do courses for me. My administrator does all of the work, but that's not how it first started. I was all of it at the beginning until we saw some money coming in just to be able to support myself. And then it got to the point where now I'm doing, 15-hour shifts between work and trying to grow my business and just being stretched too tight. So there were quite a few crossroads where you have to sit back, stop, evaluate what's happening, and make some hard decisions. And that will happen all the time.
Yes. Very good advice. Very good. And my last question to you, a little bit dare one, and I kind of switched it up a little bit. So what's the darest piece of advice that you carry in your heart? Maybe you gave this advice to someone, or maybe you received that advice from someone, but it's so precious to you, you would never forget it.
Wow, that is really a good question. There's been so much of it, Casey. I'd have to say it was from my mom, who passed away in 2019 from Alzheimer's. And it wasn't that she said something, it was the way she would look at me with pride. She never expected any of her children. I mean, they were poor people that, she used the old milk bags for, and you don't know what the milk bags are down in Florida, but we have milk in bags and 1 liter bags. And so she would use those milk bags to put vegetables. And I mean, she sewed, she did everything. She was such a hardworking mom. And that look that she gave me was the best advice, because her belief in me when I wasn't confident as a youngster going into nursing and moving on as a traveling nurse, and I had to prepare for a talk. And I stood in front of my mom and dad, and I said, "Can I practice this talk in front of you?" And that look came out again. And I was preparing my speech and talking to her about it, and to my dad, and they're both French Canadians. So it was in English, but they understood zero of what I was telling them, because it was healthcare. It went totally over their head, but that did not make one iota of a difference on that look that she gave me. I gave her my Heart of the Matter book, the first edition in 2013, and she looked and she was reading it like she understood everything. Like she was my best cheerleader. And even today, I can still hear her saying, you're doing the right thing. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Well, I feel like I'm a cheerleader for my kids, and I think for me, looking at my kids, seeing them be successful and really live a life that's worth living and that can leave a legacy behind, I can see that pride. That's excellent.
Yeah, that's what you want for your kids, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sitting with us, letting us pick your brain, getting to know you a little bit. Now, audience, I asked Darlene all of my questions and then some. What questions do you have? I know you got some questions to her. It could be about nursing. It could be about 100-acre forest preservation. It could be about her work with nursing students. What questions do you have? Leave it in the comments below and connect with Darlene. She's on LinkedIn. Connect with her, get to know her. She is an amazing, amazing nurse, and she's leaving a beautiful legacy behind. Darlene, do you have any last minute advice for the audience?
Casey, this has been such an amazing experience, and I am looking forward to connecting with you ongoing. There is a big movement happening in nursing right now, a global movement, and we have to rise up to that. And the people that are on the same team, you, me, and so many, we're seeing them on LinkedIn. So anybody who's not yet on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. There are so many worthwhile connections to make. And we just have to do our best to make our profession the best that it can be. And it's more important now than ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is going to be a big turn of the century for nursing. Well, this has been such a pleasurable interview. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. And we will see you next episode on Meet the Experts. Talk to you later.